The heart monitor screamed flatline the exact second Dr. Riley Kane shoved through the ER doors, her white coat flapping like a warning flag. I stood frozen in the corner, blood roaring in my ears, as the woman who once destroyed my life in high school now barked orders to shock my wife back from the edge of death. Addison's body jerked once, twice, her dark hair matted against the gurney, and all I could think was how the same girl who'd whispered freak and lesbian pervert in every hallway at Lincoln High was now the only thing standing between me and total emptiness. 10 years had sharpened Riley's features into something clinical and cold, but those sharp green eyes still carried the same judgment that had forced me to lie for a decade. Clear. Riley's voice cut through the chaos. The paddles hit Addison's chest again, and this time the monitor blipped back to life, a weak but steady rhythm that made my knees buckle. I grabbed the wall for support, tasting salt from tears I hadn't realized were falling. Nurses swarmed, for lines snaked into Addison's arms, and Riley turned, locking eyes with me across the sterile room. Recognition hit her like a slap. Her mouth opened, closed, then tightened into the same thin line I remembered from the day she'd stood on the cafeteria table and announced to the entire senior class that Scarlett Thompson kissed girls behind the bleachers. I couldn't breathe. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Probably my mother again, demanding updates on the car accident involving my roommate. Roommate. The word tasted like rust. Addison and I had been married in a quiet courthouse ceremony 2 years ago. Rings hidden on chains around our necks. Kisses stolen behind locked apartment doors because my father's church congregation couldn't handle the truth. Reverend Elias Thompson's only daughter, the golden girl headed for law school and a picture-perfect life, couldn't be one of those people. So I played the part. Polite smiles at Sunday potlucks, vague mentions of friends, and a carefully curated Instagram full of solo shots. Addison understood. She always understood, until tonight, when a drunk driver had slammed into her while she crossed the street after her late shift at the bookstore. Riley stepped closer, peeling off bloody gloves. Scarlett Thompson. Small world. Her voice was low, professional, but the undercurrent of old venom made my stomach twist. Your friend is stable for now. We're rushing her to surgery. You should call family. She emphasized the word family like she knew exactly how complicated that was. I nodded mutely, unable to form words. Outside the glass doors, rain hammered Chicago's streets, mirroring the storm inside me. 10 years of secrets, 10 years of pretending Riley's rumors hadn't almost cost me my home. And here she was, holding Addison's life in her hands. I sank into a plastic chair in the waiting room, head in my hands. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like accusations. How had it come to this? High school felt like another lifetime, yet the memory played on loop. Riley catching me and my first girlfriend, Mia, sharing a desperate kiss after prom. By Monday the whole school knew. Whispers followed me everywhere. My mother had cried for weeks, my father had threatened military school, and I'd done the only thing I could. I dated the captain of the football team, smiled through church youth group and swore it was all a lie. Riley had won. She'd moved on to college and med school. I'd buried myself in textbooks and denial. Until Addison walked into my life during freshman orientation at Northwestern, with her easy laugh and kind eyes, and suddenly the lie became unbearable. A nurse brought me coffee that tasted like regret. I stared at the black liquid, wondering if I should text my sister Claire. She was the only one who might understand, but even she didn't know the full truth. My phone lit up again, Dad. I let it ring. Telling them Addison was more than a roommate would shatter the fragile peace I'd maintained for years. My father's Senate campaign was gaining traction on family values. One leaked photo and it would all crumble. I'd lose the trust fund, the family name, maybe even my budding career at the firm where partners still invited me to golf with their sons. Riley appeared in the doorway, scrubs swapped for fresh ones. She made it through surgery. Touch and go, but she's a fighter. Relief crashed over me so hard I nearly sobbed. Riley hesitated, then added quietly, "You look like you're about to fall apart. Want to talk?" The offer felt like a trap. I shook my head. "Just thank you for saving her." She studied me for a long moment, the same calculating stare from high school. "Some things don't stay buried, Scarlett. You know that better than anyone." Then she was gone, leaving me alone with the weight of every choice I'd ever made. Hours blurred. I paced, prayed to a God my father loved more than me, and finally drifted into exhausted sleep against the wall. When I woke, dawn light filtered through the blinds. A doctor, not Riley, said Addison was in ICU, sedated but stable. I stumbled to her room, gripping the rail of her bed. Her face was pale, bruises blooming across her cheek, but she was breathing. I brushed a strand of hair from her forehead and whispered, "I'm here, baby. I'm not going anywhere." The words felt like both promise and lie. The door opened behind me. My mother's voice cut through the quiet like a knife. "Scarlett, honey, we came as soon as we heard." I turned to see her and my father filling the doorway, Claire trailing behind with worried eyes. They'd driven through the night from our suburb. Dad's jaw was set in that familiar line of controlled disappointment. Mom rushed forward, hugging me too tight. "Your roommate, Addison, right? The poor girl. We'll pray for her recovery." I nodded, throat closing. They didn't know. They couldn't know. Not yet. But as Mom fussed over the flowers she'd brought, Claire caught my eye. She'd seen the way I looked at Addison for years. She knew something was different. And in that moment, with Riley's warning still echoing and my wife fighting for every breath, I realized the fragile dam I'd built was about to break. The ICU smelled of antiseptic and fear. Addison's monitors beeped steadily now, each sound a small victory after the flatline that had nearly ended everything. I sat beside her bed, holding her hand beneath the thin hospital blanket, my thumb tracing the faint scar on her knuckle from the time we'd tried, and failed, to bake cookies together in our tiny apartment. Mom had stepped out to get more coffee, leaving Dad and Claire in the corner chairs, their presence a heavy blanket of expectation. Dad flipped through his phone, no doubt checking campaign polls, while Claire scrolled silently, shooting me glances that felt like questions I wasn't ready to answer. Riley appeared at the foot of the bed during morning rounds, clipboard in hand, her posture all business. "Vitals are improving. We'll keep her sedated another day to let the swelling go down." She glanced at my parents, then back at me. "Family only in ICU, but I can make an exception for close friends." The word friends landed like a challenge. Dad stood, extending a hand. "Reverend Elias Thompson. This is my wife Margaret. We appreciate everything you're doing for Scarlett's roommate." Riley shook his hand, but her eyes flicked to me with something unreadable. "Roommate. Right." She didn't say more, but the air thickened. Claire shifted uncomfortably, sensing the undercurrent. After rounds, Riley pulled me into the hallway. "We need to talk. Privately." My stomach dropped. We ended up in a small consultation room, the kind with faded posters about hand hygiene. She closed the door and leaned against it. "10 years, Scarlett. You still hiding?" I crossed my arms, defensive. "You don't know my life." She laughed without humor. "I know what I saw that night behind the bleachers. And I know what I heard from half the class. You denied it all, dated that jock, made me look like the crazy one spreading lies. My own parents grounded me for a month because your dad called mine." Her voice cracked just slightly. "I was a kid too. But I never forgot how you looked at me after. Like I was the monster for telling the truth." I wanted to argue, to scream that she'd ruined everything. But the words stuck. Because part of me had always known the rumors were just the spark. The fire was my own fear. "Addison is my wife," I whispered finally, the confession tasting like freedom and terror at once. Riley's eyebrows rose. "Does your perfect family know?" I shook my head. She exhaled slowly. "Then you'd better figure it out fast. Because when she wakes up, she's going to need more than a roommate at her bedside." She left me there, staring at my reflection in the dark window, the city lights blurring through fresh tears. Back in the room, Dad was praying over Addison's bed, generic words about healing and God's will. Mom patted my shoulder. "You've always been such a good friend to her, Scarlett. We raised you right." The praise felt like a noose. Claire caught me in the hallway later, cornering me by the vending machines. "Scar, what's really going on? You've been weird since college." And the way you look at her, I froze. "Claire, please. Not now." She grabbed my arm. "I'm your sister. If you're in trouble." I pulled away. "I'm not. Just drop it." But her hurt expression followed me all day. By evening, Addison stirred slightly, eyelids fluttering. I leaned close. "Hey love. You scared me. Her fingers squeezed mine weakly. Scar, what happened? I explained the accident in soft tones, avoiding the part where Riley had saved her. She smiled faintly. You stayed. Always, I promised, kissing her forehead. But when the door opened and my parents walked in, Addison's face went blank. She knew the rules. Mrs. Thompson, she managed politely. Mom beamed. Call me Margaret, dear. We're so glad you're awake. Dad nodded stiffly. The performance was flawless, but I felt Addison's hand go limp in mine. The silent question she couldn't ask in front of them. That night, alone in the family lounge, I finally broke. I called my boss at the firm, explaining I needed indefinite leave. He was understanding, but I heard the hesitation. Partners didn't disappear for roommates. My career, built on late nights and perfect image, was already fraying. Riley found me there again, this time with 2 cups of terrible hospital coffee. I looked you up, she said, handing me one. Big shot lawyer. Dad's pride and joy. Must be exhausting. I didn't deny it. She sat across from me. I'm not here to ruin you, Scarlett. I grew up too. But secrets have a way of exploding in places like this. If your family finds out from someone else, she left the threat unspoken. I wanted to hate her, but the old bully had become the messenger I couldn't ignore. Claire texted me at midnight. I saw the way you held her hand. Talk to me, please. I stared at the screen until it went dark. The walls were closing in, and Addison was still too weak to help me hold them up. Morning light turned the ICU into a battlefield of shadows. Addison was more alert now, sitting up with pillows propped behind her, her pole standing guard like a sentinel. She squeezed my hand when the nurse left. Scar, your parents have been here every day. They keep calling me your roommate. How long are we going to keep doing this? Her voice was hoarse from the tube they'd removed, but the pain in it cut deeper than any injury. I opened my mouth to answer, but the door swung open. Mom breezed in with a bouquet of lilies, Addison's favorite, though Mom didn't know that. Look who's awake and smiling. We brought breakfast from that cafe you like, Scarlett. Dad followed, carrying a Bible tucked under his arm. The conversation stayed surface level. Whether Addison's pain levels, Dad's upcoming sermon on moral clarity. But every time he said roommate, Addison's fingers tightened around mine under the blanket. Claire arrived late, eyes red-rimmed. She hugged me too long, whispering, "We need to talk later." The tension coiled tighter. Riley entered for rounds, her presence shifting the room's gravity. She checked charts, adjusted meds, then paused at the door. Scarlett, a word? In the hallway she didn't waste time. Your sister pulled me aside earlier. Asked if I knew anything about your friendship with Addison. She's suspicious, Scarlett. And she's not the only one. My blood ran cold. What did you tell her? Riley shrugged. Nothing. But lies have expiration dates. Especially when the patient starts calling you wife in her sleep. She walked away, leaving me reeling. Back inside, Claire cornered me by the window while Mom fussed with Addison's pillows. I heard her, Scar. She said my wife. And the way Riley Kane looked at you. Wait, Riley Kane? The same Riley from high school? The one who... I grabbed her arm, pulling her into the bathroom. Shut up. Please. Tears burned my eyes. It's true. Addison is my wife. We got married 2 years ago. I couldn't tell you. Dad's campaign, the church, everything. Claire stared, face pale. You let me believe you were alone all this time? I'm your sister. Her voice cracked. I would have stood by you. But then doubt flickered. Does Mom know? Dad. I shook my head. She stepped back. Scar, this could destroy him. The congregation, the donors, they'll turn on us. I love you, but I need time. She left without another word, the door clicking like a betrayal. That afternoon the storm broke. Dad received a call from his campaign manager. Someone had leaked photos, old ones from my college days, blurry shots of Addison and me holding hands at a festival. Not explicit, but enough. The manager's voice carried through the speaker. Reverend, we have a problem. Social media is buzzing about your daughter's lifestyle. Dad's face drained of color. He ended the call, turned to me slowly. Scarlett. Explain. Mom looked between us, confused. Addison watched from the bed, eyes wide with fear. I couldn't lie anymore. Addison isn't just my roommate. She's my wife. I'm gay, Dad. I've always been. The words hung in the sterile air like smoke after an explosion. Mom gasped, hand over her mouth. Dad's jaw clenched. This is a test. From God. We'll fix it. Counseling prayer. I cut him off. No. This is who I am. Claire stood in the doorway, silent, tears streaming. The room erupted. Dad quoting scripture, Mom sobbing about shame, Addison reaching for me desperately. Riley appeared then, drawn by the noise, and for once her presence felt like an anchor. This is a hospital, she said firmly. Take it outside. But the damage was done. Dad stormed out, Mom following in tears. Claire hesitated then whispered, I'm sorry, Scar. I had to protect the family. She'd been the one to leak the photos. Out of fear, she later confessed in a text. Betrayal from my own blood hit harder than any rumor Riley had ever spread. The hospital became a war zone. Addison's recovery room turned into the epicenter of every argument I'd avoided for a decade. Dad returned that evening with Pastor Reynolds in tow, both men carrying the weight of righteous indignation. This isn't you, Scarlett, Dad said, voice low to avoid disturbing other patients. The devil has twisted your mind. We'll get you help, reparative therapy, whatever it takes. Addison gripped the bed rail, her face pale but fierce. She doesn't need fixing. She needs her family to love her. Mom wouldn't even look at her, eyes fixed on the floor. I stood between them, heart splitting. I choose Addison. I've always chosen her. The words felt like jumping off a cliff. Claire had disappeared after her confession text, too ashamed or scared to face me. Riley checked in hourly, professional mask cracking once when she pulled me aside. Your dad's making calls, threatening to pull hospital funding if they don't limit visitors. He's using his influence. The old bully had become my unlikely ally, her past sins dwarfed by the present crisis. By nightfall, the firm called. Partner Danielle's voice was ice. Scarlett, the optics aren't great. Clients are asking questions after those photos surfaced. We're putting you on unpaid leave, indefinitely. My career, the one I'd sacrificed everything to build, crumbled in one conversation. Addison cried when I told her, blaming herself for the accident that started it all. If I hadn't been distracted that night, I kissed her knuckles. This was always coming. I just needed you to survive first. The next confrontation came at dawn. Mom arrived alone, eyes swollen. Your father won't budge. He says if you don't end this relationship, he'll disown you. Cut you off completely. The trust, the house, everything. She reached for my hand, but stopped short. Scarlett, please. Think of us. The church is already splitting. Members are leaving. I looked at Addison, asleep and fragile, then back at my mother. I can't live for you anymore, Mom. I love her. That's not changing. Mom left in tears, and I felt the last thread to my old life snap. Riley found me in the chapel later, staring at stained glass I no longer believed in. You did the right thing, she said quietly. I was wrong back then, spreading those rumors without understanding. I was scared too, of what it meant for me. Her confession hung between us. She nodded. Took me years to accept it myself. That's why I pushed so hard. Projection. The revelation should have shocked me, but in the ruins of my world it felt almost fitting. We sat in silence, two survivors of the same small-town hell. Addison woke stronger that afternoon. Scar, whatever happens, we face it together. Her words gave me courage, but the texts from Claire kept coming. Please to reconsider, warnings about Dad's rage. Family honor versus love. The choice was mine, but the price was already mounting. The ultimatum arrived via certified letter the next morning, delivered to the hospital by a grim-faced courier. Dad's lawyer had drafted it. Renounce the lifestyle. Annul the marriage, return to family counseling, or forfeit every tie, financial, emotional, legal. The paper shook in my hands as I read it aloud to Addison. She reached up, brushing a tear from my cheek. You don't have to choose me over them, Scar. I'd understand. But her eyes said otherwise. I tore the letter in half. I already chose. Years ago. This just makes it official. The hospital staff whispered now. Riley shielded us as best she could, but word spread. My boss left a voicemail. The partnership track was gone. Old friends from church unfollowed me on social media in droves. Claire showed up once more, face blotchy. Dad's campaign is tanking. Donations dried up overnight. He's blaming you. She wouldn't meet my eyes. I love you, Scar, but I can't lose everything too. Another betrayal, softer this time, but it still stung. She left a check, her savings, she said. Blood money for silence. Addison was cleared for discharge 2 days later, still bruised but whole. We took a cab to our apartment, the city lights smearing past like tears. Inside, the space felt different, smaller, freer. I helped her to the couch, then collapsed beside her. It's done. They're gone. She pulled me close, our foreheads touching. No. We're here. That's what matters. For the first time in weeks, we kissed without fear of interruption. A quiet promise in the dim living room. But peace was an illusion. The next morning, reporters camped outside our building. Someone had tipped them off. Dad's public statement called it a family tragedy and urged prayers for my restoration. I watched the clip on my phone, Riley's number flashing on the screen. She'd seen it too. You need a lawyer. I know someone discreet. Her support, born from shared scars, kept me from drowning. The final confrontation came at the courthouse steps a week later. Dad had filed for some archaic conservatorship nonsense, claiming emotional distress. We faced him in the hallway, me, Addison on crutches, Riley as moral backup. This ends now, I said, voice steady for the first time. I'm done hiding. I'm done choosing your reputation over my life. Dad's face twisted. You'll regret this, Scarlett. When you're alone and broken. Addison stepped forward. She's not alone. She never will be. He turned and walked away, shoulders slumped in defeat. The judge dismissed the case that afternoon. Irreversible. The door to my old life slammed shut forever. 6 months later, the leaves in Lincoln Park turned gold, matching the simple band I now wore openly on my left hand. Addison walked beside me, no crutches needed, her laugh carrying on the autumn wind as we pushed our new rescue dog along the path. The apartment was ours, paid for with the freelance legal work I'd scraped together after the firm cut ties. Money was tight, but every night I fell asleep beside the woman I loved without checking the door lock twice. Riley had become a friend, meeting us for coffee on her rare days off. You did what I was too scared to do back then, she admitted once. I'm proud of you. Her words meant more than she knew. Claire sent occasional texts, careful, distant, but Dad and Mom remained silent. The church had split, the campaign had failed. Family honor had cost them everything they feared losing. And in the end, it cost me nothing that truly mattered. I stood at the edge of the lake one crisp evening, Addison's arm around my waist, and watched the city skyline glitter. The price had been steep, lost inheritance, fractured relationships, whispers that still followed me at new job interviews. But the freedom? Worth every scar. I turned to Addison, kissed her softly under the street lamp, and felt the truth settle deep in my bones. I had chosen myself, and in doing so, I had finally come home. Was family honor ever worth more than living your truth? True or false?